Hey guys, it's Book of Katherine, and welcome to my first voting series after the big procedure and after the big July break, because there was a big break in July where there were only 2 primaries that we had. And before I get into that, there's going to be a video for August that I'm going to do, but I just wanted to film a little video, well, a plea really. So this is a plea to everyone who does all these amazing research videos, for everyone in the 90% of political views that are not left or communist driven, or how should we say, anything that doesn't limit free speech. Any political view that doesn't desire the limiting of free speech. So, and laws like that, or like the extreme expansion of government, that sort of thing. But really just elimination of free speech. So for that 90% of voter and demographic, there are a lot of channels out there that do amazing research. But the thing is that because of the amazing astroturfing out there, as that term becomes more widely known and more widely understood, if you really pay attention, you'll notice that a lot of our channels, and my channel is absolutely guilty of this, is directed towards what the mainstream media leads us around. We take the bait with these astroturfing stories. And if you look over our channels, whether it be my channel over the last 6 months as I just got into this, well, I don't even think it's been 6 months, or the last 10 years or 15 years, however long people have been into it, it's the exact same issues over and over and over and over and over again. And that's great, but the issues are debated and the facts are out there. Hello, Lila. Lila would like to say hello to everybody, but I'm in recovery right now, and I started physical therapy again, and I cannot bend down. So it is literally 4 in the morning right now, and the sleepless nights have begun again. So we are on day 2.5. So sleepless nights are back. So, and that is part of the reason I am doing this plea. So I would love this. Look at all the primaries that we have in August. I've missed one. I was too sick to be able to actually do anything for you guys. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 13 states who really need our help. That's real research that needs to be done. That really, this script and the astroturfing that's out there, they are really trying and working hard to distract us. Like all those stories that they were doing about kids at the border. Well, we have kids here at home, like Project Veritas did this huge unraveling. All year they've been doing an unraveling of teachers' unions and how they've been sexually abusing and raping and beating our kids, and then giving them huge salaries and bonuses, or moving them around like the Catholic Church did in Betrayal or Spotlight. That's been happening all over our nation. And no one's saying boo. That's way bigger than just separating away kids from their families, never mind kids that it could easily be prevented by coming to a port of entry and choosing not to, choosing come to somewhere else other than a port of entry. So it's really interesting that everyone's focused over here when really we have our own nation's children are in this huge thing of crisis where we cared when it was the Catholic Church, but we don't care now that it's happening underneath a union with our own kids in public schools. So my point is that because it's happening at the border, all of a sudden all the channels start turning, and we all turn our heads this way, and we start publishing all the facts that have to do with the border. Well, that's what they want. They want our whole entire lens turning over and looking at the border. And they don't want us looking over at what's happening on the ground. And what was happening on the ground at the time were primaries. And they don't want us getting educated and focusing on what's happening here in our nation. Like, that's the last thing that they want. And right now, we're such good researchers. We're such good diggers. And honestly, like, you guys don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. But there's all these amazing researchers. Like there's D'Souza, and There is, and I know you have a book coming out, I know you have a movie coming out, but there's Louder with Crowder, who's an incredible researcher and is just finding out about astroturfing, which it's scary because all the rebuttals he has are all to astroturfing, and those rebuttals would have been 100 times stronger if it was just known that they were all pure astroturf, which is just paid advertising, and looking and finding out who paid for that. That would have made it a much stronger rebuttal. And so this astroturfing really helps us because it just takes all of the air out of the tires on these things. And then you realize, well, it's just all the same thing. And so all of that resource and energy and incredible research material and all those facts that have been shared repeatedly over and over and over again. I mean, all that, it's just such amazing energy. And it's not, I mean, let's see, and Ben, though I know that he works for someone else that has another agenda and paid for by somebody else, it's really, really hard when your own people aren't sponsoring you, when you actually work for somebody else who has a different political agenda that's really different from the rest of us. And so that's difficult. And so, I get that. So, but like Milo, and I know for those of you who are new to my channel, like, you're going to think, oh, white supremacist, right? Well, I'm sorry, but he's married to a black man. I apologize that he's married to a black man. That's a really bad white supremacist. And he's gay, and he's Jewish. They hate him. They hate him. They're at the top of his list, along, with Ben. So I'm sorry. So you're like, how can that be? That's not possible. Because they're scared of what he's saying. And what is he saying? He's constantly outing what Islam is doing, all of the crimes of Islam. And he's the only one strong enough to say it. He's the only one out there actually saying it. And I just found a video the other day where he was actually calling out the Republican Party for how they are voting. And I was like I grabbed my husband and I was like, how long ago was this? Like, it's really frustrating to find out when my research is catching up with what people have been saying for forever ago. That's frustrating to me. But the thing is, people have been saying this for so long. And this is my point, is that, and there are others, I listed them today, Project Veritas and everything like that. It would just, our voters have they have all these videos going back for the last 10 years for them to go through and research the issues. And Prager University, all right, but how many of us have videos on how to vote? So what if they get educated on the facts? So what if they know facts about the border, that sanctuary cities just hide criminal networks it's just to protect the criminal class of all the trafficking and all the mafias and all the Russian mafia of the world and the cartels of the world and the Soros drug trafficking. Like, it's just to protect the criminal class. It has nothing to do with protecting citizens at all. It has everything to do with protecting their drug money from ever getting caught and letting their networks, they know all that. Like, there is a ton of voters out there that are like, yeah, we get it. We can research the issues. They can find our videos and they know them. So now what? Like, they're out there. Like, why constantly make new videos saying the same thing over and over and over, and climate change and everything else? Now what? So they get educated on the facts. So what? You want to just beat a liberal? Is that all it is? You just want to beat a liberal? Or what do you really want them to do with it? Do you want them to make a change? Do you want them to be empowered? Because the only time any of them are actually stronger than any of these guys is when they vote. That's it. When a person votes, I'm sorry, but we have returned to a time of aristocracy. All the people in the media, they have the same money, they have the same power. The people in the media and the people in the Congress and the people in the upper class and the royals, they're doing the same things and they're committing the same crimes that the French aristocracy did. But you know what happened after the French Revolution? They got the vote. The people got the vote. Eventually led over to the American Revolution, and we got the vote. So why aren't we leading people to the vote, to voice their vote? Because on that day, they are more powerful than George Soros and Rothschild combined. That's their most powerful thing, and I'm not seeing any videos out there on how to register to vote, how to vote early, not to vote early, but how to actually register early. Not only that, but how to actually sign up to the polls. Because that's the thing, is that people are corrupting the polls. If they get an empty ballot, they fill the rest of the ballot out. Like, Democrats arm the polls. Like, watch all those things about how they rig the election. Like, we have got to be arming those polls. We've got to be signing up and being at those polls. And if not, we need to be videotaping it and watching the busing and protecting it. And then afterwards, making sure that they're not hacking and tallying the votes. And like making sure the USB ports aren't, making sure the USB ports are not having something plugged into them to change the tallies at the end of the day. Like, we need people in there, and we're not doing anything to be like, here's how to sign up to become a poll person, and here's how to actually protect the vote, and here's how to actually sign up to the vote, and here's why it's so important to actually show up that day. And I don't know if it's because you're like, oh, well, I just think that'll be too much. My people won't want to do it. Well, you expect your people to actually sign up for your clubs and pay a monthly fee. If you're expecting them to do that much, you can at least expect them to walk in the door and vote. And I can absolutely guarantee you that if the left can get them that riled up to go out there and take out an ice pick and shiv someone, which, by the way, Louder with Crowder did that video. It turns out he was the one in the undercover video I shared with you of the ice picks with Antifa at the Ben Shapiro event. That was Louder with Crowder who did that. And that chick who did it, she was arrested later that day for violence. Later that day, she was arrested for violence. But when Louder with Crowder took that video to the cops later that day, to the news media, they all turned it down. The cops wouldn't look at it. The police on campus wouldn't look at it. The campus officials wouldn't look at it. They tried to hand over the evidence immediately, and no one looked at it. Do you think that makes people upset and want to do something? Yeah, I think it makes them want to vote. Give them something to do, and this is what they can do. And I don't see why we shouldn't pool our resources together and start actually researching the people to vote for. And then we know we got to vote out the incumbents because I did the research, but I am just not healthy enough to do the research on all these candidates. Like, I found Timothy O'Neill in North Dakota. Like, my research did that because the left tries to bury these people. And now they're not eliminating people like they used to be because they know it's making the research too easy. And so now they're making us dig through more and more candidates. You have to go into the GOP and you have to research every single one of them. Like, that's where in my humble opinion, that's where our research should be. Like, and I know I try to look chic for you guys today. This is, I try to put on my nicest vintage stuff that I just got at a thrift store for you. Like, you don't even want to know how little all of this costs. So thrift store is everything. But that's the American way, is that people give so that people like me can actually afford to be looking nice for you. That's generosity and following the left at this point. I'm just begging you guys to pay it forward maybe and help me out a little bit with this research and help give each of these states a fighting chance and help them look through this research so that it's the primaries that matter. It's the primaries that matter, because when it comes to the fall, people don't want to vote Democrat. They know what the Democratic Party has done. They know they've lied to them all these years. But the Republicans, oh my gosh, the establishment, if you've seen the Republicans that are out there, they sound I didn't know. I found out on CNN, all these people that I assumed were leftists, they're the old Republicans from the Bush dynasty. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, they sound no different. And I'm just finding more and more and more video of like Democrats who are just like, I just wanted Jeb Bush in office. That's all and I'm just like it's like everyone's coming out of the closet and just admitting that there was no difference. And I'm just like, no one's looking at the laws, and I need help. I need help for people to go out there and not just inform the public, because so much of it, like, it was so interesting. I just watched a thing, I changed my mind about America is the greatest country. And it was so interesting because one of the guys didn't know any of the facts. He didn't know any of the facts about it. He thought he was so educated. He didn't know any of the facts about anything about speech crimes in other countries and people being put in jail at all. He knew nothing. And then he said something really interesting about Venezuela. He's like, well, in Venezuela, just the media and the state media, and in Korea, it's just so much that no one knows the facts. They're just snowed by everything. And I was like, it's just so ironic. I was like, oh yeah, sounds familiar. And I think it's up to us. If we just keep following the left and keep watching the news media, we've spoken on the issues. We've done our part. Like, we've done the research on the issues. If our people want to find out the facts on the issues, they can dig through our channels and find out what we have to say about it. But to continually report on the astroturfing of the left is only to propagate those stories to our people and keep them involved in the media. And I'm like, this is what we need to, like, our people are just saying, like, why won't you educate us on what matters to us? Why won't, like, if we had a real news media, they would be reporting on the primaries and the candidates that are running. If we had a real news media, we'd be doing that. Well, isn't that what we consider ourselves to be, is a real news media? So you don't have to do it. You have freedom of speech. You have freedom of speech, but I guess that's what I'm asking you. Do you? Do you? Or are you hooked to the left? Go back through your last 2 months and see if all your stories aren't hooked to the left and the stories that they chose to write. At the same time, who determined what story came out that day? Them or you? And then I'm just saying, if you're interested in maybe doing a story that the people want to hear and the people are interested in, and I know, because I can hear your argument in your head. You're like, this is people's votes. Yeah. It's still reporting on corrupt politicians. It's still reporting on all you're doing. Don't you think people want to know about Keith Ellison's history? Don't you think Minnesota wished they had heard about it? Like, you guys are some of the most amazing diggers I know. Dig. And get the real research and the real truth out there. You're not going to make anyone vote the way you want them to. You're not propagandists. I'm encouraging you. I'm pleading with you, because I can't do it. I can't do it for every state. I want to, but I can't. Please. It's up to you. It's your freedom and it's your right. But you dig for facts every day about politicians and people, but it's about the same people all the time. What about the politicians and people running for these states? You don't think it makes a difference? When you put it all together, think about how many things in Congress today are being decided by one vote. Like all those people that snowed us in Congress with their great Facebook questions, all these Democrats with one Facebook question, and we're like, oh, what a great Facebook question. Well, where are they now? Where are they? Not that Kavanaugh, like, I'm not a fan of his or whatever and stuff like that. Like, he's not anyone that I want. But, I'm just saying, like, all these Democrats are like, oh, like, we're actually reasonable. But, oh, no. They're nowhere to be seen. And it's not even Supreme Court or whatever, but there's other things. There's other things that do make sense, that are just common sense, that they are just not going with, just to be jerks. Literally just to be jerks, that are constitutional, that like take rolling back the UN 21 stuff, for example. But they're just so owned. They're so owned. And just, it's so partisan. And the GOP is just defunct. How did Milo put it? He said, the GOP needs to be ripped in two. And I remember I was sitting there. I was just about to have my procedure. And he said that. And I remember my knees buckled. My knees buckled. They just buckled underneath me. Because I was like, it's worse than I thought. People need facts, like what the hell's going on inside. Because he knows. He went to the RNC convention to do the very first gay convention at the RNC. And gee, how did Twitter know to shut it down? And now that I know how much the RNC astroturfs, I'm just kind of like, how did Twitter ban him first, just minutes before the first gay? Gee, I wonder. You don't think? that maybe there were some insiders, because that would have conflicted. I didn't know about the Never Trumpers then, but that would have proved that Trump wasn't homophobic. It would have gone against that narrative and strengthened him. And I know Republicans who voted for Hillary, and I don't even know what to say about that. With everything we know. It's your vote. It's your voice. It's your vote. But the thing is we just need education, don't we? We just need education so that we can vote. We can vote how we want to vote. Please go out there. Go out there and get the research and tell us how many minutes it takes, like how many weeks beforehand we need to be registered to vote, who they really kicked out, what judges they paid off, like everything, like all of it, like which jerk like sued the other jerk to try and get him out of the race and was a jerk about it, like all that stuff like happened in Maine, and like which places are now having cumulative voting. Tell people that with cumulative voting, you only vote once. That's how the guy in Maine won. Like I freaking tweeted that out, and I was like, in cumulative voting, do not vote across the board. Vote once. You only have one vote. You weaken your vote when you spread it across. You have one vote. You vote once. One dot. Never in cumulative voting, spread your vote. That's it. Then the most popular person always wins. That's why the corrupt officials do it, and that's why Soros is suing so many counties to try and get cumulative voting in. It's just a way to keep the most name seen out there. Trust me, I know all the political dirt on that stuff. So yeah, so I'm like, always just vote in one dot ever on a voting card. Ever. All right, I'm done with my ramble. I'm done with my plea. I am done with my begging to please in August and throughout. This is the most important time, is primary season. Please help out all these candidates. Like, God, what's going on in Florida? We need to know which candidate is actually legit. Like, maybe DeSantis is the only viable one, but do you see how many candidates we have to go through to find that out? And don't our followers deserve that with all their dedication they've given us? Isn't that the news they deserve? Isn't that what they come to us for? Real news. Real primary news. That's what's happening on the ground. And it doesn't just affect the state, it affects every area of government. If you want smaller government, if you don't want communism with Agenda 21 coming everywhere, UN 21 coming everywhere, don't you think it's up to you to find out like which ballots in which states are actually UN 21 and tell people? Isn't that our job? If you really hate the left and hate communism, maybe that's the story we should be pursuing. And not actually pursuing the left, and clomping after them when it's just an astroturfing company. And all they're doing is just selling bracelets and selling China. We get it. But nobody's watching them anymore. Their ratings are like down to here, so why are we doing it? All right. Rant is over. Begging's over. It's the last time I'll ask. It's just a plea. Because I can't do it. And I would if I could. But I'm just one. And I'm one that's in just with a broken body, without a staff. It's too new into it. So, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobis. You're my only hope. You're everyone's only hope. In Kansas, Missouri, Mississippi, Washington, God, Washington needs us. And Hawaii, Connecticut needs us. God, Minnesota, what's going on there? God, what's going on in Vermont and Wyoming, Alaska, Wisconsin, Arizona, every one of these states, Florida. Do you know how badly, what's going on in there? Please? I'm Book of Katherine, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.